तो they will talk of Pakistan Railways और कहेंगे यार हालात बड़े खराब हैं. और वो हालात, when we say that things are not right in the railways, of course, in the end, it comes to what kind of a deficit railways is throwing up, what kind of sort of a gap is there between the revenue and the expenditures of railways. And why are people worried? Why? Because this is a public sector organization. This is a federal government organization, and one of the biggest federal government organizations. So naturally, when the a public utility like the railways, when it throws up a deficit, which is about 45 to 50 billion rupees a year per annum, so it, of course, then affects almost everyone in the country. Our friends sitting in Shangla, for example, maybe they have not even traveled by train. Our friends sitting in Waziristan, our friends sitting in Job, कहीं पे border के पास, anywhere, maybe somewhere in Sindh interior, Skardu mein, people have not traveled on a train. But when the railways throws up a deficit of 45 to 50 billion rupees a year, then of course these people have to pay for it. In spite of not traveling on the railways, somebody has to pay for that deficit. And that deficit, why? Because it is a government company. Had it been a private company, things would have been different. Nobody would have been bothered. Kitna deficit hai, kitna wo. It is a private sector company, okay. But no, it is a federal government. So it is in the public interest that this deficit should not be there. And how are these people paying? When I say that these people are paying for the inefficiencies of the railway, these people are paying for the deficit and the sort of the gap between revenue and expenditures. They are paying when they go to the market. Somebody wants to buy some stationery for his son who's going to school. Somebody wants to buy clothes for his children. Somebody wants to buy shoes. आप उसमें sales tax देते. Now that is where the government is collecting revenues for running the government. Now when organizations like Pakistan Railways and PIA and steel mill and utility stores and all these public sector enterprises, when they start throwing up deficits because of inefficiencies, because of not proper use of resources and not proper use of the assets that they have, then this sort of tax that is being collected in the form of sales tax or custom duties or whatever excise duties, jo bhi government ke taxes hain, then these are collected from everyone. Every person is affected, and this gap, that deficit gap, is then filled up by the government by paying the organizations the deficit in the form of subsidies. So that is where people are then affected. So it is in the national interest and it is in the public interest that these organizations like Pakistan Railways should be running efficiently. They should be making good use of their resources. They should be making good use of the assets that are available to them. And they should be running in an efficient and financially viable and safe and secure mode. ये है, इसलिए वो कहते हैं कि जी, so when we talked of the deficit, let me see if it is here somewhere. Yeah, here. Yeah. Now this is a reflection of the entire inefficient ways. So how do you do this? Now this is a कहना बड़ा आसान है कि जी ऐसे होना चाहिए वैसे. I am sure the people who are there, they're all very brilliant people. They are all very professional people. They are all experts in their own fields, but still this happens. So it is not this way that I'm telling you that it should be done this way, so it will be okay. But I'm just giving you the broader picture. And this reflects of the inefficiencies के जो end में deficit आता है of any organization for that matter. So the deficits are the reflection of inefficiencies in the. So today this was what I explained to you yesterday, bigger picture. So then now we are talking of railway, we talked of railway economics, we talked of Pakistan Railways. Now let us see what the sectors kya hai. As I said, railways is nothing but train operations, and railways is nothing but trains. And in trains, there are two types of trains. One is the passenger train and one is the freight train. So from that point of view, it is very simple. But then again, when you when you enter each of these sectors, there are a number of variables which have to be analyzed, which need to be analyzed by in a professional manner. Only then you come to know कि हो क्या रहा है. So the passenger sector, and I am here talking of Pakistan Railways now. So once in the 70s, Pakistan Railways used to carry about 135 million people annually. So annual people, the number of passengers was 139 in the 70s. Or in the 70s, the population was maybe much less than this. So that means the railways was carrying more people than the population of the country at that time. So population bhi zyada hogi. But today we are carrying about 55 to 60 million people, passengers. Now, when you look at these figures, that means we have shrunk almost to about 1/3 of what passengers we were carrying. Now, when you look at the number of passengers that have dropped, so straight away you would say, being sort of looking at the figures, you say, okay, this is going really very down, very fast. Or क्यों ऐसे हो रहा है? Why we should be carrying, if we were carrying 139 or 40 million people in the 70s, today we should be carrying more, at least double that amount, or maybe more of those people. But then when you look at the figures of the passengers who are traveling, you will be surprised that the passenger kilometers, जो कि मैंने कल explain किया था कि passenger kilometer means a kilometer traveled by one passenger becomes one passenger kilometer. A passenger going from Karachi to Lahore will travel 1200 kilometers. So you get from one passenger, you get 1200 passenger kilometers. So multiplied by the number of people who are going from Karachi to Lahore on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, वो फिर आपको समझ आ जाएगी कि passenger kilometers. So let me get this yearbook. मैं आपको सिर्फ I have it here. You should get hold of the yearbook, or yearbook. I think you will get it on the net. Let's go. Try to analyze the figures. So I'll just give you. Let me get to the page. Just show you the passenger kilometers. In spite of the drop in passengers, number of passengers drastically reduced, but number of passenger kilometers has increased. What has happened is that people are now traveling for longer distances. The tickets that are being sold for longer distances. People's desire and demand is to travel for longer distances. So the basic sort of parameter for judging a railway is passenger kilometer. So if the passenger kilometers have increased, तो फिर आपको फिकर नहीं होनी चाहिए. 1 minute, I think I have it here. Now these ये जो data है ना, ये you look at the yearbook, it is a very very interesting data. And ये ठीक है, 5-10% data सब में खराबी होती है, but generally the data is okay. So in thousands, 1 minute. So ये आ गया. In, for example, this yearbook says that in year 75 to 80, 1975 to 80, ये 5-year period पे इन्होंने किया है. The number of passengers carried was 145 million. मैंने तो 139 million लगाया, तो ये 145 million people traveled by Pakistan Railways. और passenger kilometers कितना था? When you look at the number of passengers who went by train, किस distance पे गए, कहाँ तक गए, so multiplied वो किलोमीटर बन जाते हैं पैसेंजर किलोमीटर. ये 15 million passenger kilometers थे. 15 million passenger kilometers. 70 or 1970 or 1975, that 5-year period, the railways carried 134 million people. 134 million people. तकरीबन 13-13.5 करोड़ खलक लोग इसमें गए by train. And what they went and did, the passenger kilometers was 10 million passenger kilometers. ठीक है, 10 million passenger kilometers travel किया. In 2019 and 20, not 21, 22, अभी latest नहीं है. 2019 and 20, the number of passengers that traveled on the rail came down to 44 million only. 44 million. लेकिन passenger kilometers कितने हो गए? Double हो गए, 20 million passenger kilometers. 2018 और 19 में वो जो ऊपर 55 million है, you can say this is for 2017-18. 2018 और 19 एक साल में 60 million passengers traveled on Pakistan Railways as compared to 134 million in 1970 or 75 का average लिया हुआ उन्होंने. So they did measure 10 million passenger kilometers. 10 million passenger kilometers. 18 or 19 में 60 million people traveled. 60 million or 130 में आधे से ज़्यादा फर्क. So the passengers dropped for more than half, and the passenger kilometers measured was 29 billion passenger kilometers. 29 billion passenger kilometer. और ये जो ऊपर है ये 10 million है. 10 million, yes. Sorry, I'm sorry, थोड़ा सा फर्क हो रहा है. जो पैसेंजर किलोमीटर है, जब 1970 और 75 का जो 134 मिलियन लोग ट्रेवल कर रहे थे, उन्होंने 10 बिलियन पैसेंजर किलोमीटर ट्रेवल किया. 18 और 19 में 60 मिलियन लोगों ने 29 बिलियन पैसेंजर किलोमीटर ट्रेवल किया. So even if the passengers have reduced by more than half, they are now traveling further. They are now utilizing the railways in a better way, and the passenger kilometers has increased. Naturally, when the passenger kilometer increases, that means your assets, the passenger is traveling more, your assets are being utilized better, and आपका revenues भी ज़्यादा. तो मेरा अपना, this is my own view that इसमें one should not be apologetic when you look at the figures of the number of people who have traveled. तो आपको कोई कहे कि जी पहले तो 140 मिलियन लोग जाते थे, अभी 50-60 मिलियन लोग जा रहे हैं. You can tell them no, ठीक है ऐसे, it is like that. But then these people are traveling much further and they are utilizing that asset much better. So the passenger kilometers has increased from 10 billion to 20 billion. So that is where the thing is. And your basic unit in any transport sector for passengers is the passenger kilometer. Now what has happened, as I said, what the passengers have reduced, so that means the average lead of passenger has increased. From my view, my own view, Pakistan Railways, with the kind of geography that we have, with Karachi in the south and the hinterland ports, का जो Karachi ports का hinterland है, in Upper Sindh and Punjab and KP and Quetta on the sort of west, it is meant for long distance passenger travel. The demand for long distance passenger travel is there. the people are there, they want to travel. Usko, then that demand has to be met from supply of trains, and I'm talking of now rail economics and supply, demand. If the demand is there for long distance travel, it has to be met by some kind of supply. Now, when the supply, जो trains हैं, how these long distance trains, overnight trains, express trains, then these should be very efficient and these should be introduced. And the small hop trains, जो छोटे छोटे जगहों पे जा रही हैं, इनको आप खत्म करें. उसका कोई फायदा नहीं, उसका नुकसान ही नुकसान है. So that means कि things are good. Average lead of passenger has increased, or average lead of passenger increase जो हुआ है, that also let me show it to you. In 1970 and 75, जो average है, where 134 million people traveled on the railways, they traveled 10 billion kilometers, passenger kilometers. The average lead traveled by each passenger was about 80 kilometers. Now, average means that there are many people who are sort of reducing that average. Why? Because somebody is traveling 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, 30 kilometers. Now, this was the time when railways was also running Karachi Circular Railway, very short. It was running a number of branch lines which have been closed down. So small hop station to station, 10 kilometers, 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers. Then the average at that time was 80 kilometers. Every passenger who purchased a ticket on Pakistan Railways in the 70s, 70 to 75, ये जो 134 million लोगों ने लिए ticket, they traveled on the average 80 kilometers on the railway. Right? Now, 2018-19, एक साल, when 60 million people traveled, much less than that, and who earned 29 billion passenger kilometers, the average lead came out to be 490 kilometers. वहां पे 80 और यहाँ पे 490. Look at the difference. So ये तकरीबन 6-7 times jump है. That means the average lead per passenger is improving, it is getting better, and I think that is where your trains then become financially viable. This is a step forward on the passenger side. Then short hop passengers reduce, they've been reduced, and long distance passengers have increased. This is a good thing that has happened. In this, then on the passenger side, trains which were running long distance means maybe more than 400-500 kilometers up समझ overnight trains were introduced, Karachi Express and Karakoram Express and all these trains are इस किस्म की trains where people actually thought कि इसमें बड़ा फायदा है. You just sit in a train in 6 or 7 in the evening from Lahore, and in the morning you are in Karachi. So good for business people, good for trade people, good for people who are into commerce and जो business में, especially cities like Lahore, Faisalabad, Peshawar, Rawalpindi, Multan, वो अच्छा हो गया. और short hop passengers, KCR बंद हो गया, छोटे मलिकवाल to Bhera, बदीन to हैदराबाद, ये छोटे मोटी चीजें बंद होनी चाहिए थी, बंद हो गई, तो उससे काफी फर्क पड़ा. And there is a continuous demand, and it will remain that way. This is traffic forecasting, which has been done by the Asian Development Bank, by the Chinese, by the World Bank, by other people. They think that there will always be a good demand for long distance travel. And the demand will always be there. So you need to be prepared and to run these trains. Now, at this, the kind of railways that we have, just the maximum design speed is 110 kilometers per hour. This, of course, then needs to be improved and it needs to be upgraded. And some money has to be put in by the government so that the transit times come in, become shorter, the speeds are increased, and the general service to the public is made better. So how do you make it better? Of course, some investment has to be done. So for this, then, Government of Pakistan decided on the ML1 project, which is upgradation of the at least the main line. And I'm not saying that the upgradation of the ML2 or ML3, that is equally important and it should be there. The entire network needs to be upgraded. But since beggars can't be choosers, so then government decided, and luckily with CPEC coming in, then ML1 was chosen for upgradation. Unfortunately, that also has taken a lot of time, but still going on, and hopefully it will be done. Because without this, frankly, I don't think Pakistan is going anywhere. The economy of Pakistan is going anywhere. This ML1 is essentially required for reducing the cost of business in the end, cost of doing business. It is required for moving sort of cargoes. It is required for moving people on a faster note in a better conditions. And of course, then moving especially freight trains from the port to upcountry and taking exports down to Karachi and maybe connecting China and Afghanistan and Iran. This is the future, and the future is good. We have a population here. We have the demand for travel. We have the urge of the people to travel long distance, and it will always be there. Then when you look at, analyze the passenger sector, you will be surprised that the entire demand, 80% of the people, they want to travel by these 45 odd 38 or 40 odd trains, which is Mail Express, जो कि खैबर मेल है, which is तेज रो एक होती थी, अवाम एक्सप्रेस है, अब्बासीन एक्सप्रेस है, रहमान बाबा एक्सप्रेस है, खुशाल खान खटक एक्सप्रेस है, then ये तेजगाम है, कराची एक्सप्रेस, and all these. So these are all express. हाथ लग गया, पता नहीं खुद. अच्छा, the entire demand for passenger travel. Okay, ठीक है. So the entire demand for passenger travel is basically on ML1, mainline 1. And why is it ML1? Because your cities are sort of located on ML1. Entire Pakistan का जो ML1 mainline 1 के ऊपर जो शहर है, जो इंडस्ट्री है, जो ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स है, जो एग्रीकल्चर है, वो ML1 पे. So naturally people would like to travel. अब ML2 पे you find these small districts, जो backward districts of Pakistan, I call them ऐसी बेचारे backward districts हैं. They need to be developed. They need to be brought up. They can only be brought up if ML2 is developed. वो लैया, बखर, ये मियांवाली, कुंदियां, इस टाइप की जगह, जैकोबाद, डीजी खान, राजनपुर, तो ये वेस्ट साइड पे जो लोकेटेड है ML2 पे. अब had ML2 been developed, I am sure these cities would have come up. Road network develop हो जाता कोई और. But then of course ये तो, that I don't want to go into that detail. But ML1 has the major cities, and major cities Karachi starting, then Hyderabad, big city, Kotri, Hyderabad. Then you come to Rodi, Sakkar, Nawab Shah, and Khanpur, आगे फिर भावलपुर, लोधरा, समरसटा, ये एक एरिया में आ जाता. Then you come into Multan, again on ML1, Khanewal, Multan, huge population, developed areas हैं. Then you come into Sahiwal and Faisalabad area में आ जाते हैं. Then of course Lahore, और रायवेंड से लाहौर एंड शाहदरा एंड कामोकी एंड गुजरांवाला सारा एक ही इंडस्ट्रियल एरियाज हैं. एंड देन फ्रॉम गुजरांवाला, गुजरात, लाला मूसा एंड जेलम, एंड देन यू कम ऑन टू पिंडी. सो ML1 हैज योर पॉपुलेशन. एंड trains, passenger trains, they connect people and they connect destinations. So people, it is for people to travel. So isliye that is why. So 80% or 85% of the traffic goes on ML1. And then 80% of that traffic that is traveling on ML1, there are 40 trains out of the 260, 70 that were running at one time, 300 were running at one time. उस वक्त भी यही हाल था. And today now that 70, 80 trains are running, exact figure I don't know today कितना होगा, but 70, 80 चल रही. Now the main demand is in these 30, 40 trains. 80% डिमांड उसकी है, और फिर उसके बाद 80 and another 15% is demand for intercity. Now intercity कौन सी है? For example, trains running between Islamabad, Rawalpindi and Lahore, trains running between Lahore and Faisalabad, trains running between Lala Musa and Sargodha maybe, and trains running between Hyderabad and Mirpur Khas or Karachi, Hyderabad and Karachi Mirpur Khas. तो 15% उसका है, बाकी जितनी ट्रेन है वो 5% में भी उसका डिमांड कर रही है. So straight away when you look at this data, you will say the demand is there in the long distance trains. There is a big demand, there will be a demand, and that demand should be met. You just simply run mail express trains. So you can meet that demand.
ये मेल एक्सप्रेस ट्रेन कौन सी होती है सर?
Mail express trains are those trains which do not stop at every station. They do not stop at the smaller stations. The smaller stations don't have commercial activity. They are just crossing stations. They are operational stations where 2 trains can cross, 3 trains can cross, and where maybe some kind of freight activity is there, but passenger activities nahi hoti. So that these mail express trains do not stop. They are express trains. They run between major cities. A train and the mail train is जो mail hai, like Khyber Mail, Bolan Mail, Flana Mail. These mail trains are those trains. Now this is historical. Entire post office, entire postal department used to be dependent on the railways. All your letters, everything, parcels, packages used to go by trains. उस जमाने में road network was not developed, so special trains were assigned to perform the postal activity. At every railway station, there is a huge office which we call the Railway Mail Service. उनके अपने दफ्तर होते थे पोस्ट, पाकिस्तान पोस्ट के, so वो उसको हैंडल करते हैं. Naturally आजकल दुनिया has changed. You have emails, you have WhatsApp, you have courier services, you have, so they have also changed, but it still goes on. And the trains are called mail trains, Khyber Mail. Khyber Mail, if you look, if you see closely, kabhi jaएं, to Peshawar Kent station, you will see a red carriage. That carriage belongs to the Pakistan Post. It is not railway property. It has been it is Pakistan Post property, but railway runs it for them. तो उसके अंदर पूरा डाखाना होता है, पूरा, it's a complete post office. They have these pigeonholes, और ये, and even on every branch line there used to be these post carrying trains. हर एक डब्बा, most of the trains, they used to have these mail trains. So express trains, an express train, for example, Rahman Baba Express, which starts from Peshawar, it will not stop at Pabbi and all these small stations. Next stop will be Nowshera. From Nowshera, it will maybe stop at Jangira, but then it will stop at Attak. From Attak, it will go straight to Rawalpindi, not stopping anywhere at Golra or Texla or Hasnamdal or Isapur bypass. So these are express trains. What has happened with express trains, that the intention, the purpose of the very train has been defeated. For example, Awam Express used to be one of the best economy class trains in Pakistan. वो एक नाम होता था कि जी Awam Express आ रही. Awam Express then started stopping at smaller stations. ये जी इसको मेहरबानी करें जी इधर रोक दें, टेक्सला में रोक दें, इसको जी थोड़ा सा ये गुजर खान में रोक दें. Then there used to be a demand, why not stop it somewhere at Lala Musa also, and maybe stop it again after a few kilometers at Wazirabad, then stop it after Lahore, say at Raiwind. तो इस तरह वो stoppages political reasons की वजह से, political pressure की वजह से, they started stopping these trains on different stations. तो उसका वो जो express वाला concept है उसको defeat कर रहे थे. My view is no political stoppages, only pure economics. If people have a demand there, yes, it should stop. But there, at times, the people have a demand, but then you can't spoil the train. A train has to reach the major cities like Lahore and Peshawar and Karachi and Rawalpindi at a certain time. You're dealing here with human beings, not animals. So if a train is supposed to reach Karachi at 9 in the evening, it should reach 9, or maybe if it is late, there's some operational problem, maybe half an hour late, maybe 1 hour late. But then you can't have a train which should reach Karachi at 9 o'clock in the evening, which should be there. It is timetabled that way, it is scheduled that way, and it reaches at 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is actually what was happening on in a lot of trains. I closed down. This is some kind of history now. I closed down Shalimar Express. Now, Shalimar Express was a name which was, synonymous with good service. It was synonymous with good speed. It was synonymous with non-stop. It was a train which was introduced between Lahore and Karachi. It used to start early morning, 6 o'clock from Lahore, and reach Karachi at 9:30 or 10 o'clock. Similarly, from Karachi, it used to start at 6 o'clock in the morning, reach Lahore at 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And it went that way. Why? Because it was one of the first few trains we called non-stop. It used to stop for operation reasons at Hanewal. It used to stop for operation reasons and watering and fueling and change of locomotive at Rodi for half an hour. Otherwise, there was no stop. Even at Hanewal and even at Rodi, people could not get onto the train or could not purchase tickets. It was a non-stop train between two major metropolitan cities of Pakistan, Lahore and Karachi. And it ran efficiently. It was operated very efficiently for a few years. But then what happened is that certain political pressures were witnessed. One was it should stop. Why is it going, avoiding Multan, which is a major city? It should stop at Multan. It was when one of the prime ministers was from Multan. So it was diverted via Multan. I think half an hour or 45 minutes were added to the train. So when the arrival time of 9:30 or 10, that went on to 11. Then somebody else said, no, it's a very important train. Why can't it stop at Saiwal? Of course, why not? So another 10-15 minutes were added. Then similarly, Bahawalpur ka ho gaya, फिर नवाब शाह हो गया, फिर फलाना, फिर हैदराबाद हो गया, फिर So the train then it would start at 6 in the morning, और उसका अपना arrival time जो था, it was about 12 o'clock, 12:30 in the evening, because these political stoppages were added. Then when things went bad and the track and the infrastructure, there were repairs going on. There were sort of engineering restrictions put on the train at various places, so it could not gather that kind of speed it wanted over or late ho jati thi. So when I took over as general manager railways, I found that the train would, yes. Then because it used to reach late, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Now imagine a family of 3 or 4 people in the economy class leaving Lahore at 6 in the morning and reaching Karachi at about 2 o'clock in the night. So, taxi people out there, there were no buses running towards Nazimabad, no buses running towards Gulshan or dur jagah. So people would pay much more than the ticket they had purchased for. They would hire a taxi or bade to usko galiyan dete the. So what happened is, okay, they said, yeah, this is not on, so let us make it a night train. Name was the same, Shalimar. Then it became a night train leaving Lahore at 6 or 7 and arriving Karachi same sort of 10, 11 o'clock. Now the entire purpose of the train was changed. Initially, it was a day train. People enjoyed the countryside. They looked at Pakistan from Lahore to Karachi. सब आपको एक टीवी की तरह नजर आता था दिन के वक्त. It became a night train, and there were other night trains. So why have another night train, and why name it Shalimar? So वो ये हुआ कि बिल्कुल खराब हो गई. People started avoiding Shalimar, और uski finances down ho gaye. It started losing money. So when I took over, I said, no, this is not Shalimar. If it can, we can't make it to reach Karachi in the some God-given godly hour. In 9, 10 baje, 11 baje bhi theek hai. Otherwise, then I said, okay, close it down because it was losing a lot of money. And at that time, things were not good. Our locomotives were bad. Hauling was bad. The tracks were not good. And then उसमें ये 3, 4, 5 बड़ी ट्रेनें हमने we said, okay, close it down. Let us improve ourselves. Let us divert our assets toward the freight sector. Let us see how we can build up the track in the infrastructure and how we can maintain speed. We will reintroduce it. So these are things. This is how you look at trains and passenger trains. So the purpose of the train needs to be defined before you run a train. Number 1, purpose. What it will cost. Number 3, what kind of revenue do you expect to generate? Will the passengers be there? Now Shalimar initially 6, when it started, used to leave Lahore or Karachi at 6 o'clock and reach at 10 o'clock. A lot of traffic. You could not even get a seat there. Everyone wanted to go by Shalimar. But gradually when it went bad, political reasons, because of technical reasons, because of engineering restrictions, then things went haywire. So this is about the passenger sector. Now come to the freight sector. The freight sector in Pakistan somehow has been neglected for the past 30, 40 years. Last maybe from 2012 to a few years back, some sense came around and some sort of stress was given that, okay, no, we want to get back into the freight sector. You will not believe it, in 2009 and 8, we were running about 8 or 9 trains from Karachi, freight trains every day. Within 2 years, so 2012, we were running 1 freight train, most of it railway material, most of it railway. We didn't have the locomotives to run it. We didn't have the fuel to run it. We didn't have the infrastructure to run it. So I said the cheezein kharab hoti gayi. Luckily, then somehow this Saiwal project came up. And because of the Saiwal project, 4-5 million tons of coal had to be imported, coal had to be transported to the Saiwal coal-fired plant. Usse railway ki koi zindagi dobara. A lot of investment. Luckily, that government at that time, they thought, no, investment has to be made. So certain locomotives were purchased. Ye jo General Electric locomotives, one of the best locomotives, maybe anywhere in the world you go, isse behtar nahi ho sakta. So these locomotives were purchased. Hopper wagons were purchased. Special hopper wagons, automatic kind, where the filling was done through conveyor belts and where the sort of unloading was done through these chutes in the hopper wagons. You just pulled a lever and the entire wagon would, be emptied in a few minutes. So this is what then revived the railways, and gradually then the ton kilometers. At one time we were carrying about 8-9 million tons in the 60s, 70s, when railways was in the black, or the freight sector used to compensate the passenger sector. Then again in 2017, 18, I think they were doing about 8 million tons again, and money started coming in. But then फिर दोबारा मामलात खराब हुए. कैसे खराब हुए? Because these power plants that were coal-fired, especially the Saiwal one, the government did not have the money to pay them for the electricity that they were producing. The agreements that had been made with the power supply companies, the power generating companies, the government did not have the money to buy out those circular debt, this issue that you keep on hearing. Now that then affected the working of Saiwal power plant. What happened is that they reduced their capacity. they reduced their productivity. And what if it affected adversely again the railways, because the coal was not required. It was not working at full capacity, so less coal was required, and our assets were then not properly used. Then again, abhi fir aake fir thoda sa chala hai. Now, this is how then government policies have been affecting railways also. And this is and exactly this same way, oil sector in Pakistan, it has been, a lot of oil used to move by trains. Railways was getting good money out of it. Okay, in 2012, as I said, we didn't have the locomotives, we didn't have the tank wagons. उस ज़माने में नहीं थी. And so people started moving by pipelines, और गवर्नमेंट ने pipelines में investment कर दी, and ट्रकों में ले गए. अब आके कहीं they're again talking to each other that okay, oil should also go by rail. And if the government, now this is a government thing, I'm not much in favor of the government putting its foot down, but then the market should determine. But the first right of refusal should be given in oil sector, should be given to the railways, because the railway has the assets. Abhi hain, locomotives bhi hain, tank wagons bhi hain. So first right, if the railways can't carry it, then they say, okay, we can't carry, let it go by any other mode. Then, as I said earlier, when you're talking of freight, when the first thing that you should ask is the traffic there? What does the traffic forecast say? Has anyone done a forecasting study? किसी ने किया है, किसी पाकिस्तान में किसी ने किया है, फॉरेन किसी ग्रुप ने किया है? Go to that study and see whether the forecast is there and the traffic forecast is encouraging. Then only you invest in that. But the good part is that the traffic forecast is really very good for Pakistan. The Asian Development Bank and the World Bank and all these organizations, and the Chinese, of course, studies ki, they think that even today Pakistan Railways should be carrying 6 to 7, 8 times more than what it is doing today. But how do you carry all that? Or you can carry it only if you invest in your infrastructure. Now our line capacity is limited. If you are running all these passenger trains, as I told you, 38, 40 to mail express trains, your total line capacity. Now line capacity, I don't want to go into details, but it is the capacity, the number of trains that you can put on the track and that can travel every day, each way. Every day, each way. Isko line capacity कहते हैं. Pakistan Railways line capacity is limited to 32 to 34 trains per day, each way. Now, where is it limited? Ye Lodra and Khanpur and Rodi and Khanpur, Rodi and Lodra. इसके बीच में line capacity की limitations हैं. So beyond Rodi, line capacity is more. Beyond, even between Karachi and Hyderabad, line capacity is more than 60, 70 trains a day. But things are not moving to Hyderabad. And things should not move out of Karachi into Hyderabad by train, unless dedicated koi commodity hai. So it can go by truck. But then beyond maybe Rodi, when the line capacity is limited 32, आपको limiting factor जो है वो 32 है. It is not पीछे आप कहें जी तो ज़्यादा है. तो where is the commodity going? Commodity is going beyond Rodi and beyond Lodra into Faisalabad, into Lahore, into Rawalpindi, into Peshawar, into Afghanistan. ये जा रहा है. So our limiting factor is 32 trains each way per day, limiting line capacity है हमारी. That if you want to carry more, sort of run more trains than 32 each way, then you have to do something either with the line capacity increase karna, or you reduce your passenger trains and run more freight trains, so that वो 32 से ज़्यादा ना हो. अब तो 32 से ज़्यादा होगा फिर वो congestion शुरू हो जाती, फिर वो trains delay शुरू हो जाएंगी, फिर और मसले होते हैं, तो आपको सारा system खराब हो जाता है operations में. So even if the freight traffic is there, it is still there. Why can't we run it? Because we are running these mail express trains. Now, if the mail express trains, common sense, if they are not making money, the demand is there. But if they're not making money, a person like me would say, okay, let us close down 5 or 6 of these trains and run more freight trains so that we get more revenue and we carry more freight. And in the process, the railway earns more and then you cross subsidize. So, ye ho sakta hai ek tarika. But otherwise, if you want the passenger trains to run and you want more freight trains to run, you need to enhance the line capacity. And how do you enhance the line capacity? You enhance the line capacity by putting in some modern signaling so that more trains can go on the same track. And you upgrade the system so that the speed of the train is enhanced. So, वो line capacity का एक formula है, Scott's formula, old formula, but works even till today. वो बीच में आजकल computers आ गए हैं, छोटा मोटा variable इधर, छोटा मोटा variable इधर, फर्क, but Scott's formula, frankly, आज तक ठीक चलता है. 19-20 का फर्क होगा, but it gives you the bigger idea. और वो Scott's formula में let me find out, then I'll show it to you sometime. And that determines कि कितनी ट्रेनें per day आप चला सकते हैं. So in that Scott's formula, the slowest train determines the formula. The time taken by the slowest train in the longest block section क्या होता है? 2 स्टेशनों के बीच में. तो खैर वो लंबा काम है, छोड़ें. तो खैर then you must be thinking that since the demand is there for long distance trains, even on the passenger side, even on the freight side, why don't we run trains? The question is, it is because of the line capacity. And of course, another angle is also the axle load. लेकिन वो इसके साथ कोई connection नहीं है. Even today, if we forget about the axle load, forget about increasing the axle load, we can still run more trains by increasing the line capacity. And the forecast is there, the traffic is there, both on the freight and the revenue side. Then the peculiar aspect of freight operations is that when you run a freight train, the costs are much less. The expenditure is much less. Yes, the expenditure on the fuel is maybe almost equal on both sides. But then look at the operations. On a freight train, you just need one driver and one guard at the end. In some countries, they don't even have a guard. They don't even have a fireman, assistant driver bhi nahi hota. So even if you have these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 locomotives attached and you have a very long train, still you need one driver. Control सारे उसके पास होते हैं. So you need, Pakistan mein you need one driver, one assistant driver and a guard. And you carry 2,400 tons of cargo in 35 or 34 wagons, and you earn millions of rupees just by from one train getting out of Karachi. On the other hand, when you talk of the passenger trains, there's a huge expenditure involved beside the operating costs. Lighting ka, services ka, mahal ka, seats ka, washrooms ka, andar ye kharche hain sare. These are all expenditures. Then look at the staff that is employed on one train. The driver, the fireman, the guards, the conductor guards, the special ticket examiners, the people who are checking the mechanical aspect, the people who are on the railway stations, in reservation offices, in booking offices. Ye sab passenger trains ke liye. Freight train mein you just need one booking goods clerk and he books the entire train and you get millions of rupees from one train. So ये मसले हैं. Passenger में बड़े, a lot of variables out there, and one has to look at it. And then every passenger has his own demand. Freight का तो is very कोई जुबान भी नहीं है इस बेचारे की. Of course, then when you're talking of freight trains, you have to look at the traffic. कौन सी commodity आप उठा रहे हैं. So the traffic, as I said, the forecast says the Asian Development Bank, World Bank, China, JICA, everyone says there's a good demand in Pakistan, and it will remain there for long distance bulk traffic, freight traffic. And where is that demand? They say that the demand is there for oil movement, cement movement, coal movement, container movements, goods in transit to Afghanistan. In the future, maybe goods in transit to China. There is a demand for trains going into Iran and on to Turkey and on to Europe, provided वो जो sections हमारे खराब हैं वो ठीक हो जाए. So demand is always there, and the demand, I personally feel Karachi as a port can serve as a good port for the Punjab of India, even up to Delhi. Maybe Bombay does not serve Delhi that much, जिस तरह Karachi करता है. अगर ये border ना हो ना, you look at Railways map, you will see that Karachi is a better port for East Punjab. Jalandhar and Amritsar और ये जगह सारी Rajasthan areas, Karachi is a better port. Karachi will even serve आपके Jodhpur area. But then वो फिर political reasons and because of our own relations with India, वो नहीं. So the traffic is there. Then freight में, without a locomotive, everything, even a passenger train is not much without a locomotive खड़ी है. Then freight sector में, this asset of a locomotive is very, very important. It needs to be, you need to dedicate locomotives to the freight sector. Nobody should be able to touch it. But होता क्या है, if there is a small, even a small passenger train, a local passenger train, if its engine has failed somewhere in the section or at a railway station, the first thing automatically is done is why? Because there are people traveling in the passenger train. The first thing that happens is you go and cut the locomotive from the freight train and give it to the passenger train so that that can reach the destination. Now this freight train is hit badly. एक दिन खड़ी रही. Maybe at times हालात खराब होते थे, 2-3 दिन खड़ी होती. So your customers, your credibility goes for a sick customer. I was expecting my train to arrive within a day, and here it is the 3rd, 4th day. It is not coming. So that is how your images and your credibility goes for a 6th thing. So dedicated locomotives. Now let me also tell you that the latest locomotives that we have on railways, Pakistan Railways, these are these General Electric locomotives. State of the art, really very modern, very efficient, as good as any in the world. Or we purchased them from America. I think this was 4 or 5 years ago. They did a good job on the coal sector. But now what is happening is, again, they are being misused on the passenger sector. They were meant purely for freight operations. So वो misuse, I'm keep on saying misuse of assets, mismanagement of assets. The freight sector mein locomotives need to be dedicated, and the more locomotives you have, the more credibility you develop. And let me tell you, credibility does not come overnight. You have to sort of create it, establish your credibility, maintain it and sustain it over time. I personally feel at least 4 or 5 trains, freight trains should be timetabled. एक वक्त में किया भी था. I think maybe अभी भी हो. लेकिन अगर आप नहीं भी चला सकते, लेकिन timetable तो करें so that you are forced to run it on that path. And there is, I don't see any problem not having a timetable for freight trains. If a sort of a trader knows that his container will be picked up from Karachi and put onto a train at leaving Karachi at maybe 11 or 12 o'clock in the night, when there are no passenger trains going up country, and it will reach Lahore next morning or next evening, he will be the happiest man alive. वो ट्रक के करीब नहीं जाएगा. But then what happens is कि वो हमने dedicate नहीं किए. Freight train does not leave at the time that it is required, और फिर वो credibility खराब है. Then we've had these ups and downs. As I said, in 2012, there was not even one train that was leaving. So how do you convince a trader, okay, no, now we are okay, please come to us? He says, no, we have had enough of you. So these kind of things created its credibility over a very long time. They would run even empty buses. Even 2 or 3 passengers would be there, they would just run it. Why? Because they wanted to maintain that credibility. Once that credibility was there, then people knew that they mean business, and it started, people started patronizing Daewoo. So this is how it is done. In the short run, maybe you lose money, but in the long run, then you give confidence to the traders, to the consumers, and to the people who are into trade and commerce and into industry and into agriculture, into all these. Ye cheez hai. So this is all about freight trains. Quick question, but then about each commodity in freight, it is actually a different world. Your oil transportation by train is a completely different ball game when you compare it to containers. When you compare containers to carriage of coal, it's bilkul different. Your sort of terminal facilities at originating station, they're completely different. Oil ka apna system hai. You need pipelines, you need overhead filling, you need different kind of tank wagon. And then even then it has to run on that track. That is okay, engine, and then it is okay. For railways, it is the same locomotive. It will run that 34 bogies of oil. When you bring it to the terminal, the destination station, wahan pe that oil needs to be decanted. There are certain facilities, certain kind of terminal facilities that are required to decant the tank wagons in an efficient way and quickly. Then when you look at containers, complete different. Even at the ports, containers kahin aur pade hue. You have to, it's a different kind of operations. And these then even at the terminal stations, you need different kinds of cranes. You need these top lift cranes. Kis tarah ke, how do you approach it on the platform? Different mahol aapko chahiye. Cranes chahiye aapko. Different kinds. Isi tarah koile mein, when you have most modern hopper wagons, then at Karachi port, they are loaded through conveyor belts. Each wagon is loaded through a conveyor belt. Usme when it's 60 tons are put onto one wagon, goes onto another. Simultaneous loading bhi ho rahi hai. Then when it comes to destination, the entire train is unloaded in 10 to 15 minutes. Very efficient. In fact, the same locomotive is put on the train. Usko ek chakkar dete hain, aise lamba aur khali karke it goes back. So all these things, these are then those dynamics of train operations, of freight operations, जो आपको फिर समझ आनी चाहिए. Afghanistan, goods in transit to Afghanistan, इसकी अपनी dynamics हैं. You need the custom people there. वो एक और angle आ जाता है. And you have to see, most of it goes in containers and some of it goes in these bogie wagons. तो ये फिर सारी चीजें आ जाती हैं.